George Pickens just gave one last FU to the Pittsburgh area before bailing on them once again. So, if you didn't know, George Pickens had this camp that was going to go on, where it was sold out and these kids were going to come in, learn, and compete with George Pickens. George Pickens was going to run this camp in the Pittsburgh area. But he was traded to the Dallas Cowboys, and the camp still asked him way earlier, are you still going to do this camp? George Pickens said yes. But the week of the camp, George Pickens absolutely bails on the Pittsburgh area, say he's not doing the camp anymore, basically telling the kids to go home, it's not going to happen, and bails on them. But more than luckily, Pat Freiermuth, he steps in and says, hey, I will take over for George Pickens so these kids can still do this camp in the Pittsburgh area and it can still go on. But George Pickens bails, Pat Freiermuth has to step in and make it still happen. But first, before I get more into this, however, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, let's break this down entirely so we get the full picture. Because George Pickens, he had a sold out youth camp that was going to take place in Highmark Stadium in Pittsburgh. And after committing to an event like that, a countless number of children were probably looking forward to seeing George Pickens in person, meeting him, and also learning from him at this event. And it was sold out, so you could tell that a lot of kids wanted to be there. But George Pickens absolutely bailed on them, bailed on the event, and this will probably upset many that signed up for the event, because they're going for George Pickens, because George Pickens is running the event. Even though Pat Freiermuth did end up stepping in, and I'll get more into that in a little bit, they were signed up for a George Pickens camp, not a Pat Freiermuth camp. I'm sure a Pat Freiermuth camp would have still been sold out, but maybe it's a different select of people that would have showed up. So anyway, George Pickens bails on the event, and he says, no, I'm not going anymore. And the full post put out by the youth camp, this was what they said. In short, before I get to it, they basically said that George Pickens absolutely just bailed on them and they're very disappointed in him. But anyway, here's the quote. Thank you for your patience in regarding to the George Pickens Youth Football Camp scheduled for June 28th at Highmark Stadium. As many of you know, George Pickens was traded to the Dallas Cowboys on May 7th. Immediately following the trade, our team contacted George's representatives to confirm whether he would still honor his commitment to the Pittsburgh event. We were promptly assured that George remained committed to the camp and intended to show up for the families who had registered. Based on that confirmation, we communicated this directly to you via email and text May 9th. Unfortunately, as of last week, we were notified by George's team that he has decided to walk back on his word and is no longer interested in attending the camp. Let us be very clear. We are deeply frustrated by this decision and the position it has placed us all in. Our team was truly prepared to host a camp this Saturday because we were led to believe George would follow through on his commitment. His sudden decision to back out not only reflects a disappointing lack of accountability, but also shows disregard for the families and children who were excited to meet him. We are incredibly disappointed by his actions, and his actions do not express the goals or motives of true edge sports. That said, we are determined for this event to be a wonderful experience for you all. As soon as we are informed of George's decision, our team went to preserve this event. We're pleased to share that Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth has officially committed to stepping in as a guest for this camp. Additionally, we are actively in talks with multiple other Steelers players and fully intend to build out an exciting lineup that delivers value to every family. As new players are confirmed, we will notify you immediately. End post. But at the very end, they once again put George Pickens on blast before ending off their page. They said this. Let us say again, We are incredibly frustrated by George Pickens' lack of professionalism and his decision to abandon the commitment he personally confirmed after his trade. We've been forced to navigate this situation with zero notice, and while we are not responsible for his actions, we're doing everything in our power to exceed expectations and create a memorable event for your family. We also want to apologize for the delay in this update. We've worked tirelessly behind the scenes to pivot, replace talent, and solidify our new lineup before reaching back out. Thank you for your understanding, patience, and continued support. End quote. So, this whole thing on George Pickens' part is messed up entirely because he had this youth football camp scheduled for a long time, but he was still traded to Dallas. Traded in the offseason to the Dallas Cowboys. So, of course, the camp's going to be like, hey, even though this event is scheduled in Pittsburgh, you were just traded, you probably don't have to do it anymore, but we're going to check in with you. Do you still want to do it? And if you are, we'll let the kids know that you're still going to do this camp in Pittsburgh. He could have just said, no, I'm not going to show up. I was traded to Dallas. I have commitments in that area now. Cancel the camp, giving so much time notice. But no, that's not what he did. He said, yeah, I'm still going to do this camp. I'll be in here and I'll do this camp at the end of June. I'll come back to the Pittsburgh area and do it. But at the last minute, the week of, he's just like, no, I'm not showing up. I'm not doing this anymore. Or cancel the camp. I'm not showing up. Find someone else to do it or just cancel it. So basically taking no responsibility for, hey, all these kids actually signed up to see me. I'm still going to do this. I still have fans in the Pittsburgh area. It's not the Pittsburgh fans who traded me. It's the organization. So you would think that, hey, I would show up for the fans one last time and do this event. But no, he did not take that responsibility and that commitment. He was just like, no, I'm not doing this. And the camp was almost canceled. And like I said earlier in the video, Pat Freiermuth had to step up and take over alongside some other players that are probably going to show up as well. But once again, the people who signed up for the camp showed up for George Pickens, signed up for George Pickens. They didn't sign up for these other players. Even though they'll probably still have a good time and things of that nature, they signed up strictly for George Pickens, and George Pickens let them down. So George Pickens, he bailed on the Pittsburgh area one last time before heading to Dallas. It would have been one thing if he's dealing with a personal matter and he just can't show up. And this is like a last minute thing where, hey, I can't show up, I'm dealing with this. But the camp strictly says that this is him abandoning the camp and him just strictly not showing up because he doesn't want to show up and him not taking responsibility for this. The camp said that. So it would have been one thing if it's a personal thing and he can't, but he's just not willing to show up. That's the difference here. So George Pickens, accountability goes to the gutter. And the crazy part about this whole thing is there are still many fans in the Pittsburgh area and just on social media in general who are really disappointed that the Pittsburgh Steelers traded away George Pickens and feel like that was a really bad trade. We shouldn't have done it, and the front office and the coaches don't know what they're doing, and George Pickens was a good player and he should have stuck around. The Steelers should have paid him. There's so many people who still believe that. And to be honest, I believe that as well. I believe George Pickens, they should have given him an opportunity to stick around, and he's a really good player. But the Steelers got rid of him for a reason, probably because of his attitude and everything of that nature. So there's a lot of fans who are still really like him as a person and player and want to see him do great things with the Cowboys. And that's probably still going to be true. But George Pickens, it's unfortunate that he sees all that love that he's getting from the fans and then still decides to do this. That's what's disappointing, because there's still many people who love George Pickens for a short time in Pittsburgh. So George Pickens, once again, just to break it down, bails on this camp, this youth football camp that's sold out, and Pat Freiermuth has to take over. And the camp is disappointed in him because they asked him if he was going to do it. He said yes, and then bailed the same week of. But anyway, that's the end of this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on George Pickens. What's your thought on him doing this? And maybe are you guys one of the parents who sign your kids up for this George Pickens camp? Also, what's your thoughts on George Pickens being traded? Are you one of the people that were sad to see him go? Does this change your perspective? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports. Everything surrounding this team, I cover it. This is the best spot for everything Pittsburgh Steelers football. So stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe, turn notifications. And until next time, I'll see you guys all later. That's it for me. I'm out. Peace.